Hi, I'm Ralph Preston, and welcome to our Tuesday Stroke Buddies Survivor Support Group meeting. Hey, I didn't mess that up this week. Anyway, this week we've got Lisa Pyanoe with us, and she was an occupational therapist who worked for over 30 years with stroke survivors, and she shifted gears in a changing world, and now she's doing some stroke coaching. And like a lot of stroke coaching, she placed stroke coaches because stroke coaching needs to place an importance on our mental well-being as well as our physical, or I should say, our often overlooked mental well-being. That's a big focus of Lisa's. But here I go talking for my guests again instead of letting them talk. So, Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story, your transition, and some of the things that you're trying to bring to stroke survivors through your coaching?
Sure. And first of all, I just want to say thanks for having me. I'm excited to be joining you all. But as you mentioned, I've worked as an OT for over 30 years. And the beginning part of my career, probably the first half, I worked in mental health, acute psychiatric hospitalization, where I focused a lot on just educating people with life skills, be it coping skills, communication skills, relationship skills, and self-awareness type things. So that was the first part of my career. And then I transitioned more into physical rehabilitation. And that's where I really worked with a variety of diagnoses, but a lot of survivors. And I worked with the survivors from the time they got admitted in various stages through outpatient rehabilitation. So in doing that, I have noticed just the devastation that survivors are left with after a stroke, just turning their life upside down. And then on top of that, I've also seen in the rehab process that, rehab is, and we were talking about this earlier, rehab is really good at getting people physically moving, gaining some physical range of motion, some strength, some skills. But what I found really lacking is helping survivors, giving them the ability to cope with these devastating effects. And so, and that is what led me to injury recovery coaching. Is I have experience and I have the knowledge to move people forward, to help them find ways to live life in spite of their limitations and, live purposefully and take charge of their life. As I go through my day-to-day now in, working with stroke people, I realize that whether they're 1 month post-stroke or 11 years post-stroke, that they're still looking for information. They're still looking for help in coping and moving on and dealing with everything they've been dealt with. So I think, I know there's a real need out there. And so that's what I want to do through my program, Injury Recovery Coaching, is give people some of the information, the education, the support, the accountability, whatever it may be, to help them bridge that gap between where they are and where they want to go, with the focus on purposeful living. My idea is, or my philosophy, I guess, is you don't have to be fully functional to live a life of purpose. So that's where I'm at. And, we can talk from there.
I'm sorry, what was the last thing? We can what?
And so that's where I'm, at with the injury recovery coaching. And I don't know how much you want me to go into things or. You have,
Well, it's like I said, it's informal. You can go into anything you want. I would assume that in today's world, if you're like a lot of the people that I coach, I've never seen. I coach them through text or occasionally video. So I would assume that you're probably using telemedicine or some Zoom or some form of alternative delivery mechanism to work with people.
and that's the nice thing about, telehealth medicine is, people don't have to find somebody local that they like, or, have to find transportation to go somewhere, because my services is all online. And how I get people into the program is I do a lot of posting online, and I have some videos and some TikToks and what have you, and invite people to sign up for, I have a free coping strategies resource, just to kind of get them thinking about, how they can get through the day. And if people sign up for that, and again, this is through Facebook and Instagram, or going to my website. But if they sign up for that, then they automatically are involved in a journey that I take them through some videos. And I'll take a moment and describe those videos, and then we'll go from there. But the first video I present to people in this journey is one on finding a future, creating a vision. And, because if you don't have a vision, you don't know where you're going, then you're not going to get anywhere, right? So I talk to them about how to begin thinking outside of your limitations, looking at possibilities, because we have to have a plan to work toward, or we'll stay stuck, and we'll stay in the same place. So that's creating a vision. I also talk about goal setting, and that vision then becomes the place that you can establish your goals. A lot of people with a lot of survivors with limitations, they're thinking, well, I don't know what I can do. If I can't even tie my shoes, how am I even supposed to think about getting a job? So the vision allows them to dream, to think about what's important to them. And from that, they can, look at some goals. Well, how can you take a 10-year plan and break it down and even begin working on it now? And that may involve, it may just involve, if your 10-year goal is to ride a bike, okay, what can you begin doing now? Because you got to learn to walk before you can ride a bike. So let's start developing a plan now. What can you do today? And that just may be involved walking to the mailbox and back as a starting point, and then looking at developing to move forward. So I talk about goals. Another thing I discuss, and this is the crucial one that I think really either moves us forward or keeps us stuck, and it's the self-talk, is what I call it. Those things you say to yourself, those beliefs you have about who you are, what you can do, beliefs about the world, and really helping people begin thinking about what are those messages you tell yourself. And are those messages you tell yourself nurturing? Do they encourage you forward? Do they motivate you? Or are those messages you tell yourself keeping you stuck? For example, oh, I can't do anything, or, I'm worthless, I have no skills. It's those type of messages that really affect our motivation. So that's one video. And then the the final video is a video on identifying your strengths. You know, you may have limitations, but there's certain things about you, qualities about you, ways that you've dealt with problems in the past that, you know, are still a part of you. And how can you tap into those skills to move past problems? So that's my program, is really those 4 types of things to get people thinking about taking responsibility and moving forward. And so after they go through this journey, you know, then I realized that the journey's a process. It's not going to happen in a day or a week, but it's an ongoing process. And if you want information, if you want support, accountability, coaching along the way, then that's where my service comes in. So I give the free information, and you know, if they need help along the way, I'm there.
It's interesting that, of course, I coach people and I run groups. So I always feel like sometimes when I'm seeing those posts about, yeah, well, how do you expect me to do that? I can't even tie my shoes. So I always end up with this thought in my head. It's whether to tie my shoes or not, because I guess it clicked the one time I heard that comment, is it seems like people can't see past their shoes.
Right.
And I never thought about it in terms of course I did in different ways, but two things that you just said that, you know, clicked with me. And one was, you know, it's because of a lack of vision.
Yeah.
That's why they can't see past their shoes. And the other one was, of course, I've always tried to like say, well, you know, what can you do, whatever. But I really like the thing about focusing on your capabilities, just the wording. So I like the 2 things about vision and focusing on your capabilities. They fit in with my, you know me a little bit. I try and package stuff together and make it understandable for everybody. And those 2 things made those concepts more understandable to me in terms of how I run into them regularly.
Right. Well, and the thing is, when you look at the most successful people, be it in business or in life, they have a vision. Because, and you know, when you go through life, I don't think the typical person thinks that far ahead. You know, I think it's our human nature to get caught up in day-to-day living, our day-to-day routines, and we don't think necessarily about possibilities. But if you want to move forward, you have to be able to see it to move forward. Otherwise, what are you moving forward to? And if you get focused on what you can't do and how you're not functioning like you used to, then that keeps you in a negative place, you know, and then it just starts working on your self-esteem, and then it starts affecting your motivation and your opportunity to move forward is limited. So I think the vision is so crucial to setting goals, even because people, you know, people think, oh, okay, I want to move forward, but how do I set a goal? You know, and what's a realistic goal? How do I get from today to a month from now? And it's a, you know, it's a simple process, but still there's some critical components that you need to think about so you're successful in accomplishing those goals.
I see a lot of people who seem kind of lost to me, and they don't know how to break through. And I've 2 things I tell people to do who are like, you know, what can I do? Or I tell them, find something you're passionate about and focus on it, like a hobby.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a hobby, you know, and they'll a lot of times come back and, well, I used to sew and my left arm doesn't work. Well, I didn't say go back to your old hobby. I said find something you can be passionate about. If it can be your old hobby and that's your goal, then fine. Because I think focusing on something that you really enjoy is brings
Oh,
positivity to you.
definitely.
And
Definitely.
the other one I usually recommend is if you can get out and about, or even if you can't, well, not if you can't completely, but if you can get out and about, go volunteer because you meet good people when you volunteer. I've never volunteered and met crappy people. I
Right.
was on a Habitat job site one time, and they had this guy. He was really great once you got to know him, but he was like 80-year-old grumpy guy. And so they put him in charge of the tool shed. He was perfect. They didn't put him in charge of PR for the site. They put him in charge of the tool shed. But that's as close as I can come to anybody who was difficult. And uh, anyway, so you meet good people when you volunteer. It gives you a focus. Both of those give you a focus. I don't know if you or Michelle or anybody else in the group's got any suggestions for that, because that's really like a critical point when you can like say something to somebody that maybe can turn them around on this whole thing, and
Yes.
maybe I should give that a try, and maybe I wouldn't feel so lost. So I'm open to any other ideas. Or,
Well, I have a couple, techniques that people can use. And I'd be glad to share those because it's so crucial. Um, and, we had talked before too about people learn different ways, or people have different ways of communicating or thinking that works for them and not for other people. So I'll present 3 or 4 ways to create a vision, and maybe this will help somebody. Now, for those people who like to write and are very creative, and who like to read and they're word people, what I would suggest is to take a notebook and write a story, thinking about 10 years from now. If you couldn't fail, what would you like to be doing? And just write about it. Write about, and the more specific you are, the better. And as you write the story, include what you look like, include how you're moving, include what are you doing with your time, include how you're interacting with people. So make it real specific, include how you're feeling, what you're saying, be as specific as you can. And for those creative people, I'm sure that's not a problem. For me, I could not do that. I'd have 2 sentences and I'd be stuck. But for those people who like to write and are creative, that's one idea. If you are creative like that too, and your mind gives you images and stuff, but you can't write, I would suggest then just recording it on your phone, or recording that vision on your computer. But get it out there, get it down. You can add to it as days go by or as you think of things. So that's one idea. Another thing people can do is go to Pinterest. And I love Pinterest because, do you know anything about Pinterest, Ralph?
yeah, oh yeah.
So you can go to Pinterest, create a file, and it can just be vision board or whatever you want it to be, and go through and find pictures that really move, pictures or sayings, inspirations, and travel. It could be whatever you want, but save those pictures that move you, that speak to you, that pull you forward, that draw you in. Because a lot of times, like I said before, we don't know what we want. We're not used to thinking 10 years ahead. So if you're one of those people who don't know what that vision would be, Pinterest and going through those pictures will start moving you. And just take those ones that you put them in a file, and you can even if you want, you can do a file for relationships. You can do a file for activities. You can do a file for travel, a file for home, whatever it may be. But start thinking, and because it helps you begin thinking about what's important, what what you want to work toward. Because as a survivor, I find that people are changed. They're not who they used to be. And so their dreams may not be as they were before. But what used to be important may not be so important anymore. So, begin thinking about what's important now. Um, for example, if everybody thinks money will bring them happiness, but that's not necessarily true. And you could put on your vision board to be a millionaire. I mean, and it may not be realistic for some people. For me, it wouldn't be realistic because I wouldn't want to put the time and commitment into working that much, right? But for other people, being a millionaire may drive them forward, and they will put that time and commitment. So, make sure that what you put down is something that you would really get a sense of achievement out of. So I try the Pinterest. And then the last idea, and this is what I've done, is although I have magazines around, I know not everybody has magazines anymore, but I go through and, I may not exactly know what I want, right? Cut, you could, and that's good, fine motor skills, or you can rip them out. But I just get a piece of cardboard and I rip out the pictures and I rip out sayings and I just pin them on that board. And, and then, like I said, I may not even realize what I'm looking for at the moment, but when I see a picture that drives something home, it's like, yes, that's it. For example, I was doing a video on how to create a vision board the other day. So I was doing that activity, and I value family. And I didn't know what type of picture I would put down that would represent family. But when I came across a picture in a magazine, it was this family, this big family all around a fire pit. And I thought, yes, that is definitely hits home with me. And in 10 years, I would like to see my family continuing to get together like once a week or once a month and, bond. So like I said, even if you don't know what that vision would include, using the pictures gets you thinking about it. So those are 4 techniques, depending on what you like to do, what your skill level is, and how you learn. So.
Well, the Pinterest and the last one, the vision board, they're basically the analog and digital version of similar things. Again, this is good for me because what I realized was when you were started to talk, I realized both of the things that I suggested and all 4 of the things that you suggested get people involved in self-reflection. And as I was sitting here while you were talking, I'm thinking, maybe that's why you can't how can you have a vision if you're not doing some level of self-reflecting, looking at your situation and trying to improve it. That's maybe the first step to getting people to break through. Sometimes, as coaches, we forget about certain steps. I know I'm guilty of this. So you just say, well, get a vision. Well, they're not self-reflecting. So,
Right.
A lot of times I'll say, oh, this happens a lot with my exercise stuff. Well, Michelle will tell you this too. Well, just get down on the floor and do some core exercises. Well, I can't get down on the floor and I can't get back up. So we have to be careful to not talk down to them, but go all the way back to where they are. If they're not self-reflecting, you can't expect them to have a vision, I guess. I mean,
Right.
I guess I'm saying that. How can you expect somebody to have a vision if they aren't self-reflecting? So you got to get the process
Right.
started.
Right. And like I said, some of these things may seem simple, but we're typically not taught this, in life. And unless you learn it from other people or read self-help books or whatever it may be. So just, taking people, what I try to do is take them step by step through the process. If they can take the information and run, beautiful, go forward, do it. If you need some help, well, then that's what I'm here for, through injury recovery coaching. But and the same thing with goal setting. Okay, I'll set a goal, but how do I get started? How do I put that to action, or what do just planning it out, breaking it down is another thing I think people have some difficulty with. Um, so, I mean, I can talk about goals if you want me to.
Sure. And I think that they're both sticking points. Getting people to even think about themselves, think about improving and coming up with a vision. That's a big sticking point, and like we've been talking about. But another sticking point is like, how do I do this? How do I get the rubber to meet the road? And people are real fearful.
Yes.
If you one time a few years ago, I realized, I kept thinking, why do people they don't start? It seems to be the sticking point is they don't start. And I realized if you don't start, you're not accountable.
Right.
So as long as you put it off, I swear there's a small percentage of people that come into some of the Facebook groups and interact and they think that's their, daily therapy,
Right.
or that's going to make them better. And I think that there's a real fear of starting because once you start, you're accountable.
Right.
Um,
Right.
just my personal theory. Love to hear what you are. And Michelle, feel free to chime in if you got anything to say too.
Well, and then I think too, I think people get stuck in the spiral of thinking, their life's been turned upside down. They can no longer do what they've done. They can't work, they can't drive, for some people anyway, they can't work or drive or, really
Walk.
walk, take care of themselves. So the mindset becomes, well, if I can't do that, how can I move forward? How can I do anything if I can't even brush my teeth? You know what I'm saying? And I think then that stops them, that fear of failure stops people from trying things or moving forward. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling thing, because then they start saying to themselves, well, I know I'm not going to be able to do it anyway, so they may try, and then they immediately give up because of that mindset that they're going to fail anyway. So, it's like this downward spiral that people, I think, get stuck in. And that's one reason why I talk about self-talk. Well, I call it self-talk, is how you talk to yourself. But yeah, it's I think where people get stuck is they talk themselves out of trying things, of trying to obtain that goal or take that chance, because they failed so much, or they see themselves as a failure now. So
A lot of people feel guilty. I feel like a number of us, I'm a marginal example. I had a stroke because I didn't want to get on blood pressure medicine, so I could feel real guilty about what I did to my family. A lot of times people get hung up in guilt and shame, because I've heard it a number of times. Um, so it's interesting trying to break, as coaches, one of the most important things that we can do is, help people kind of break out of that
That
rut
mindset, right?
and the mindset. Yeah.
Right.
I'm a big believer in, uh, I guess it's self-talk, the way you think about yourself. I always,
Right.
when people say use the word victim, I'll say, no, we're not victims, because I basically believe that the way you think about yourself um, is really important. And if you think of yourself
Yes.
as a victim, I think you're much more likely to become a victim.
Exactly.
I had to start over walking again, and I came up with, because I was going for quantity over quality, and I got some instruction from my PTs on what I should do, and I backed up some and worked on quality. And while I was doing that, I was doing a version of power walking, stroke
Right.
driver version of power walking. And I decided that what I was doing was pattern walking. I was trying to walk my best pattern. And while I was doing that, this thought kept creeping into my head, the word pattern, pattern, pattern. And what I also realized was that there's another type of brain patterning that goes on, and that's what you're referring to as self-talk. The
Right.
way we look at ourselves and what we put out are very much determine how we feel about ourselves. The other thing I've found is that um, I'm a big believer in the when you put out positivity to the universe, positivity comes back. When you put out nothing, nothing comes back. So all these people that are stuck, need to get, and gosh, as stroke survivors, most of us here have already done this or somewhat done this, made this transition, but it's it's like telling somebody to get over depression.
Right.
You just
Right.
can't tell people, well, we'll just start tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. Set an alarm on your smartwatch.
Yeah, well, that's the way to start though, is you have to
Actually, it is.
get that time and do it. But it is, and coping and moving forward isn't an easy process. It
No,
takes a daily renewing of your mind. You have to, just like physically, you have to do those exercises repetitively every day. That's the same with the mental aspect of coping. You have to wake up with that focus of, I'm going to find something positive today, or, I'm going to, talk nicely. I mean, you have to wake up with the intention and renew your mind every day to what you want to do. And it's not easy. I mean, I, coach this stuff, but I still have to renew my mind every day. And I think it's just a part of trying to find positivity in life, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, and it becomes more of a habit. So that's good news. But, you know, it does take a lot of effort, mental and physical, to make change. So, and I know with survivors, there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of areas that y'all want to work on, but and it's important to continue the physical aspect, with your physical rehab, but you can be living life in a better position with some effort and skills. So that's just the point I want to get. It's doable. Um, and so any way I can give people information to make that transition, the better.
okay. I thought Michelle wanted to say something, but she'll be back in a
Um,
sec. Um, well, you know, as a stroke survivor, I can tell you, I didn't wake up every day all chipper and ready to go. You have bad days. You have days where it's more like malaise, and you have days where it's more like trouble. And I employed a technique that worked for me. I don't know if everybody can do it. I would just try and put everything out of my mind and go do my exercises. Because I figured if I could just put my head down, keep moving forward, and ignore all the stuff that was bothering me, eventually I'd get into a groove for that day. And if you keep doing that, then eventually you get into more of a groove for life. I'm one of these people, I'm a guy. So I'll tell myself, starting tomorrow at 8 o'clock, I'm going to like completely change my life. Well, that's not how changing your life works. You have to integrate one little thing at a time. You'd be better off to say, tomorrow after, I hate the way my kitchen always looks. Tomorrow after dinner, I'm going to wash it. I mean, after breakfast, I'm going to wash all those dishes and I'm going to keep them washed forever. And then eventually these things, as you mentioned, become habits. And it's just not like a switch. You just can't turn on a habit. You have to engage in the process for a while. And I just found it worked for me to just, shut up, Ralph, and just go, go do your sit-to-stands. And eventually you'll latch on to something will happen in the day and you'll start feeling better. Hey, when you get done with your sit-to-stands, you at least can go, all right, I got them done. Don't have to do them till 6 o'clock tonight again.
Right.
I'm doing a lot of sit-to-stands right now, but with the TheraBand on to engage glutes, but that's a whole nother story.
Good. That's
Joe,
good.
you had your hand up earlier, I think.
Yeah. I just wanted to say I really liked what Lisa had to say about creating a vision. And it's something that I know, but I don't think about. But I do have a quote that I like to put out there, and it says, "What would you attempt if you could not fail?" And I think what you said about a vision, what would you want to do if failure wasn't an option? And that's such a limiting belief for so many. They don't even let themselves create that vision because they've got that limit already there. And so I just want to say I love that. It's so perfect. And we just have to dream without that limiting belief
Right.
in there.
Well, you just said something really interesting because, see, when people feel like they're cut off at the knees or had their life turned upside down or all the various ways that they describe having a stroke, what's happened to them is they have lost their ability to dream. I just realized that when you use the word dream, Michelle. And without dreaming, we aren't much.
Right.
Because
For the first 2 years of my stroke, I was completely apathetic. Life happened around me. I didn't participate. I didn't have dreams. I didn't have goals. And then my real mental change happened when I was visiting my aunt and uncle in Colorado. We walked around in the nature every day. We went to the Rockies and did a little hikes here and there. And then at the dinner table, my uncle's like, "Well, what are you going to do now?" And I'm like, I didn't even think about that. Well, so let me start thinking about the future. And all of a sudden it's like, well, the possibilities are there. We just have to think about it.
Yeah. And the thing is, no matter how limited you are physically, there's still a future out, you're alive, the future is there. And so, we have to think about it so we can work toward it. And that's for anybody. I may be a totally different person in 10 years from now. And no matter what happens in my life, I'll have to revisit that vision and I'll be making adjustments to it. It's just like survivors, will have to make adjustments too, but at least it gets you going.
And I know a guy who had TBI, and he advocates for TBI, which also includes stroke awareness, and he's built a community of 40,000 people, and he's in a wheelchair.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So just think about that. We have another a younger woman in our group, and I think she's probably in Michelle's group and some other groups, and she has aphasia, and she has very limited communication, but she's working on like an ID bracelet and a concept that she calls Voice for the Voiceless.
Oh,
And she
wow,
doesn't have,
that's so
and she,
cool.
so this would identify you. Actually, I had Dr. Tom Broussard on recently, and he's an aphasia expert who recovered from aphasia and now is one of us pay it forward or veteran people, right, Michelle?
That's right.
And he has a thing that goes on your visor that you can flip down. It's in case you get like stopped or something and people think you're drunk or on drugs or something, which they often do when you go to the ER and having a stroke, they often send you home. Don't get me started. Anyway, the bracelet and this visor thing, can help somebody with communication issues. Point
And
of
I
this
think they're
is,
usually free. Polly Hutchinson sent the link out, and you
yeah,
can actually ask for them, and they're free.
right,
Thanks.
yeah. Tom Broussard, I think, gives his away. He raises money somehow so that he can do that. But the point of this was, and thanks, Michelle. I'm not trying to take away from that.
No,
The
no.
point of this is we have a gal that has communication issues herself. She can't hardly communicate herself, yet she's started an initiative to help other people. That goes right along with volunteering. That would be my third thing. Would be if you're able, help other people, because I'll tell you what, you help other people even in a small way. It really makes you feel good. It
Right.
actually maybe it makes you feel like you have a bit of a purpose.
Exactly. Just because think of all the experience as a stroke survivor you have in dealing with so much. And you can, and it's that you can relate to people, I think, better because you've been through so much. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. And Michelle, I'm sorry, I just wanted to say, I didn't know what that hand was up there. I saw it on the screen. I'm sorry, I didn't
No, it's
notice.
okay.
No. I just wanted to put it up there, and our topic changed a little bit from when I talked about your vision, but I thought it was important enough that we get that fear of failure out of there, and so creating a vision without the fear of failure, it was a sticking point for me, and so I just thought it was worth bringing up again.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But I didn't know what that hand was. I thought, well, maybe you're taking a break.
No, I turned the camera off for that one.
Two quick notes. Since Michelle, you brought up Polly Hutchinson, I should tell everybody that when this meeting's over, you should do 10 sit-to-stands or whatever you can do to move.
That's right.
Polly's got a big thing. I did 20 sit-to-stands before it started, and I'll do another set after because Polly's got this thing about moving and during Zoom meetings. Me, I just do it before and after. And the other acknowledgement would be to you, Michelle, because you've probably seen me do this for the last 6 months, haven't you?
Yes, I have. And every time I see you drink, and I'm drinking an energy drink, I'm like,
every time when I'm done, I hold it upside down for you. And I've been doing it ever since we had that conversation at least 6 months ago to try and bring awareness to hydration. There's so many little things that are important in this. It's really hard to take somebody or help somebody who can't see past their sneakers, has no vision, and tell them that they need to now be responsible for 397 things. 148 of them didn't exist before your stroke, and the other 240, you need to pick up on and where you left off. I mean, that's a tall order. That's really a tall order.
It is.
And
that's why, that's why I think like something like this, what you're doing, giving education, and that is my goal, is to give education. And, then hopefully people can discern what is most valuable to them and take it from there. So, but it's got to be overwhelming for most people. So.
okay, maybe I'll temporarily open a can of worms. We can shut it back if we want. When you were talking earlier about, and I was saying, well, I just get up and do it. I heard the term fake it until you can make it, and I kind of liked it, and I've kind of realized that's what I was doing. Since then, there's quite a lot of controversy around this particular thing. There are a number of people that flat out hate it. But I found that worked for me. I think maybe their exception is to the language, because all these things that we're talking about how to try and flip the switch, they all involve taking some kind of a first step when you don't exactly know what the second step's going to be.
Right.
Don't they? You have to have a little faith in
Right.
yourself or something to take that first step. Like I said, I'd get up and do my exercises and just try and get lost in the day. If I was having a really, really bad day, I did something that I call dive to tomorrow. That doesn't mean go to bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That means get involved in a bunch of stuff, anything to make you not think about it and go to bed at 9 o'clock, because tomorrow you're likely to wake up and with a different attitude. That's one of the great things about life, is every day we get a new another chance. I'm a glass half full person. I wake up, I'm a morning person too, so I jump out of bed and I'm generally ready to go, and I'm blessed with that. And I know that I wasn't during my stroke, and I know I'm not talking down to anybody out there who's having difficulty, because I had not as much difficulty as some people, but I had my share of difficulty, and I found actually antidepressants to be a useful tool, and I used them as a tool, and I got off them when I no longer needed the tool.
Right.
So
The thing is, if we wait until we're ready, emotionally, if we wait till we're ready to start something, we'll never be ready. Those emotions, you're not just going to wake up one morning with the feeling of, yes, it's a new day, I'm going to conquer it. You'll be waiting a lifetime. That's my thought. And so you just have to make that decision in your mind that you're going to do it. I think sometimes we have to put the emotion aside and do what we know to do. Do what we know to do that works. And, at least you can say that, you put the effort in, you tried, and hopefully you'll accomplish something in doing that. But, emotions, God gave us emotions for a reason, but it's not to dwell in them. It's not to let them consume our lives. So sometimes we just got to put those emotions to the side and do what we know we need to do. At least take that first step. That's my thinking too, Ralph.
yeah, I found that it worked for me to just take that first step, and even second step, when I maybe had no idea where it was going to lead. It was better than staying still.
Right.
You can always go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna say, I think it was Martin Luther King that said, or maybe it wasn't him, but you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back to another quote from John Lennon. We were talking about, I'll start that diet once everything settles down at work. Well, then you come up with something. Well, now we're going on vacation. We're going to eat a lot on vacation. I'll start that diet when we get back from vacation. Well, guess what? You'll be telling yourself the same. There'll be a new excuse 2 years from now. And here's another quote for you, Michelle. And it's from John Lennon, but it always seemed to me like I was never sure he said it. Anyway, it's life is what happens to you while you're making other plans.
I've heard that. Yeah.
It just seems more like Lao Tse or somebody than John Lennon. He didn't walk around trying to be a philosopher. He was a philosopher. I mean, I cry to this day when I hear "Give Peace a Chance." I can listen to it. I can't listen to it without it. Yeah. Well, Lisa, you may know this from your work, but it came up this morning because somebody was saying there's nothing good about a stroke. Well, I don't know that that's necessarily true. I think that almost all stroke survivors will tell you that their stroke made them more aware of the struggles that other people go through, because all of us were too busy to pay attention to those other struggles. And number one, stroke slowed us down to a level where it's like, we got out of the car and started walking. You see a very different thing when you walk than when you drive by stuff. So that's number one. The other thing is it happened to us. So, um, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's no doubt it's got to be devastating. And I think for anybody to walk away from stroke with positive, any type of positivity, that is fabulous. It takes a special person to do that on your own,
To start with that is, but
yeah.
to evolve to it, which is what I did, but to start is a very special person.
Yeah. Yes, because it is a learning, it's a learning process. And then you only know the result, or you only know the benefits, I would imagine, is when you start seeing the results. That yes, those making goals works, positive affirmations works, my self-talk works. When you start seeing that manifest, then it kind of, hopefully shoves you a little more in that direction. But yeah, it's not a thing most people start off with.
Where's Bob Anderson when you need him? Actually, I can tell you what Bob Anderson is doing. He's renovating two houses, the one that they're selling and the one, their smaller house that they're moving into. Yeah, he's going up on ladders. He's using power tools with both hands, and he's less than 6 months out.
Does he ever stop?
No. He's the only one. I told him, I kid him, because we did a program on jump on your recovery if you can, because he jumped on it. I mean, I thought I jumped on it. I kid Bob and say, God sent him along to make me look bad. I had the number one slot till he came along. And it's not, that's like, for anybody out there who doesn't know me, that's like totally sarcastic and whatever. This is not a competition. In fact, it's really a bad idea to be competitive or compare strokes or anything. Michelle's going, yeah, because she's seen the damage and devastation that people do in the groups if they start doing that, belittling someone's stroke, or, well, you must not have really had a stroke because I can't do that and you can. I've gotten it because I had quite a good recovery. So I get people who say, well, you must have had a minor stroke or something. Well, there isn't any such thing as a minor stroke. As I said, somebody used that about 13 years ago, and I said there ought to be a federal law against using those two words in the same sentence. Because it wasn't so minor to the person. It might be minor to you, but it wasn't so minor to the person that had the stroke. I can tell you that. And I can also tell you that it's one thing that will get under my skin personally, and it's probably my number one objection in the groups is just don't ever go there. Don't belittle, don't compare. There's no comparison in comparing. I know people come in the groups and they say, has anybody in the group had a XYZ ABC stroke? They're very specific. On the left side, 3 years out, not 1.5 years out, who managed to recover left arm function, not right arm function. I mean, what they want to hear is, I'll be okay. You'll be okay. Yeah, I got better. You'll be okay. But, the strokes that happen to us are different. All of our recoveries are different. And I always say, when I talk about this in terms of comparing or whatever, you have no idea about somebody else's ability or inability to deal with what's happened to them, because you're looking at it as yourself. This is one thing that we all do. We all assume that everybody else out there is thinking like we do, and nope, that's not the case. So, Well, I mean, I made a big long list of things that we could talk about. We're here almost at an hour. Let's say things that we didn't talk about. They're all good. Healthy living, second stroke prevention, uh, dealing with negativity around you, dealing with family. That's often the same thing. Hidden deficits, visualization we did cover, positive affirmations we covered, anger and forgiveness. Oh
Oh
boy.
my gosh.
That's another 10-hour topic, isn't it, Michelle?
This sounds like 10 more weeks of
How about, here's another big one that goes in with anger and forgiveness. How about forgiving yourself? Forgiving yourself. It's a big one. I had to do it. I did it early on.
I struggle with that still.
Still?
Mhm.
What did you do wrong? Well, maybe that's personal. Sorry.
It was just around the car accident I was in. So it's just and which was subsequently how I had my stroke. So
Right, right. No, I know. I just didn't want to force you to have to talk about like the cause of the car accident, or suddenly after I said that, I realized, well, might have done been somewhat responsible, like I was, because I wouldn't get on the blood pressure medicine. I wouldn't listen to anybody. That would be a subject of a conversation, Lisa.
Yes, it would.
How do you get people who are inclined not to listen to you to listen to you? It's kind of what we're talking about when we talk about getting people to flip the switch and start thinking, having some self-awareness, start creating a vision, I guess. At least maybe that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, well, everybody has a choice. And I think our role is get the information out. Well, it's gone. Good job.
he went to get more.
Everybody has a choice. And, all we can do is give the information, plant the seed, encourage and support. I think that's crucial. Let people know that there are options, there are choices you can make, and then you can't make anybody apply the principles or the education, but we can, continue to support them and encourage. But I think we then have to walk away knowing that, we're there to help support them, and it's up to them to make that change. That's my thought. Because I've worked, in working in the hospital setting for so many years, you can't walk away from somebody knowing, I mean, it's not up to us to change them, and we can't be responsible for that. They have to take a role in that. But, but as long as we know that we've encouraged and supported and provided information, then I think we have to be okay that we did our job.
Well, go ahead, Michelle.
I was just gonna, so many people say information is power, and it is power, but information is really only potential power, because it goes down to the choice that whoever got the information, whether they apply it, take action.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Couldn't agree more, yeah. But it's hard because, you want to help everybody. You want to see everybody successful. And so that's like, I'm going to give, I want to give everybody all the information I know. I want to give it to you. If you can use it, great. But I know there's a lot of people who just aren't ready. People just aren't at that point. And so I'll continue to give information and support, but until they're ready, our hands are tied.
I have a real hard time with this, and I don't know. I've always wondered if it's partially, as a stroke survivor, do I have a harder time with this than someone who isn't? I don't know, and we'll never know the answer to that. Michelle and I could kind of talk about this. I basically feel it's really hard to walk away from anybody because I know where they're at. And and like I mentioned earlier, strokes make us much more empathetic. You know, they slow us down to the point where we can see things. And the other thing is, once you've struggled, you are much more empathetic to other people's struggles. So I have a really hard time with walking away. My only solution to it is stay away from the groups, because once I get in there, it's like a rabbit hole. And but that's not a solution, because I like to think I provide mostly good answers to people who could use them. And so it's really difficult thing to just walk away. There are a number of us, you're probably aware of this, Lisa, but Michelle and I would both say that we're doing what we're doing because we're trying to be the person we wish we could have talked to after we had our stroke, but they didn't exist.
Right, right.
I think it's particularly hard for someone who's got in touch with that empathy and become a pay it forward veteran helper type survivor. Michelle runs her own group and is a stroke coach herself, so she's definitely in that category. And the word veteran came up in one of her meetings.
That's right.
And it's surprising how many stroke survivors feel that way about how could I make the next guy's or gal's journey a little easier. Maybe I should think about focusing on that as a way to get them out of that rut. Maybe they could, maybe that's a strategy. Go ahead. I'm sorry, we both talked at the same time.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel that, I want to do what I can. And sometimes I look at myself, what could I have done different? Could I have done something different to motivate them forward? But at the end of the journey, I think, well, again, for one's own sanity, and if you find that you're putting more effort into it than they are consistently, and then it becomes your problem and not theirs. So
Right.
And looking at things that way, so my concern would be your mental health and, dealing with that. But I hear what you're saying, and I understand that compassion. But I just wanted to voice that concern from a therapist point of view.
Let's see, you and Michelle and I have talked. Anybody else out there? Winnie, Martha, Carrie?
No, I would just want to say I really appreciate what Lisa said, because I used to go on Pinterest a lot and I saw passages that I liked, so I would copy that a lot often. And so not so much the pictures, but the saying really helped. But as far as the vision, I decided this year to get more sleep. And so I started turning my phone off at 11 o'clock, hoping that I would sleep more. And Michelle said, find a way to do it. So I thought about 11 o'clock was my cutoff for my phone. So I think I have now at least 1 hour more of sleep, which I am so happy.
Yay. You just need about 2 more hours now.
But yeah, those inspirations, or the quotes that you like, those, that you can use those to set goals for yourself as well. For example, if your quote is, which one? Well, like, for example, we talked about taking that first step. So you could make that into a goal to work toward. Maybe every day you'll set one goal to take a step forward. And that could be your motto, and that could be your driving force. So yeah, the inspirations are great. I'm glad to hear you do that.
Yeah. Thank
Well,
you.
I think she's onto something. I don't think you can just wake up one morning and change globally. you change by one day deciding you're going to set your phone turn it off at 11 o'clock, and you start doing that, and you tolerate all the other stuff you want to change in the meantime, and you focus on that. And once that starts becoming a habit, and you start getting another hour or so of sleep, then you can bring in another one and bring in another one, and that's how you change your life. You can't make a big long list and just say, tomorrow I'm gonna live differently. Maybe some people can. I fail at it miserably to the point that I'm done with writing lists. I'm in the process myself of reinventing myself, and I find that lists don't help, nothing helps. So one thing that I've been doing is I've been trying to do, I got certain categories: my stroke work, my yard, my house, my physical therapy, my self-care. So there's 5 I named, 5 important things. I just try and make sure I do something, not defined, not like you will do 2 hours of physical therapy tomorrow. Because then when you get like so tired and you only do two rounds in the morning and after lunch, and you don't feel like doing it at dinner, you're going to beat up on yourself because you've got this artificial goal.
You feel like you failed.
Yeah, you're going to fail. Well, that's a whole nother thing, because Michelle, you know I believe in setting really small, obtainable goals on a daily basis, because success builds on success. Well, that's the same thing here.
You see that? It's a habit tracker, and so it's like, it doesn't show up very well. But anyway, this is 30 days all the way around for the month, and then you've got your habits here, and you just try to keep the streak. And my one habit I'm working on is to show up every day.
Hey, that's a big one, because if you don't show up every day, you can't do squat.
First step.
First step. So you understand what I'm saying, it's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think we've probably taken up enough of Lisa's time, and gosh, Lisa, we certainly appreciate your willingness to come here and share your knowledge with us. And
my pleasure. My pleasure.
If anybody just out there to the YouTube audience, and anybody here, obviously I always put our guest contact information under description on this video, so it'll be posted on YouTube, and just look down and you can find out how to get in touch with Lisa if you think that she would be able to benefit you, which I think she probably would if you reach out. So thanks to everybody for showing up, and I guess we'll end it there.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.